The cave opened up onto a grassy ledge jutting out the side of a cliff. Below the precipice, 1,000 rivers sprawled. A spider web of watercourses skittered through the expansive valley, stems forking and tributaries merging in a tangle of bright blue lines. The liquid that flowed through them cascaded down the walls surrounding the valley, and one such fall thundered not far from their position. Though it almost looked the part, the liquid wasn't water. It clung together, too viscous to flow naturally, too cohesive to mist up the way it should when traveling down such a drop, as if the liquid itself was reluctant to move. The large stream fell without interruption, without breaking up in countless tiny droplets. Aaron's hands itched to find out how it felt to the touch. Prying his eyes off the fall, he stared down the cliff in awe. Queg hovered quietly by his side. The slope leveled out much farther down, eventually becoming a gentle descent all the way to the coast and the mass of blue beyond it. The only way down was a dirt road that hugged the steep mountain ridge surrounding the valley, and Aaron could see the group of almost dinosaurs trudging on it with their lizard-like gait, puffs of dirt drifting about anywhere their feet landed. They were constantly goaded by the little herders that darted about them in stop-start motions, but the ponderous creatures didn't seem to care much about them. Greens and browns covered most of the landscape wherever the rivers didn't flow. Sparse trees in blooming fields, small forests, square patches of dark soil, weedy fields of light dirt. Herds of animals could be seen, their specific anatomy obscured by the distance. Every color and texture seemed more vibrant and tangible than he was used to. It reminded him of a computer screen with color saturation set too high, and he found himself squinting even if there was no sun from which to shield his eyes. Nothing glinted. Nothing cast shadows. The sky was a monotone expanse of electric blue, broken only by a smattering of small figures floating far above. They were shaped like jellyfish, mostly. Aaron's eyes lingered on the curious sight. "They will report our arrival in detail," Queg said, anticipating his curiosity. "I guess security cameras are too high-tech for the afterlife." Right on cue, one of them dropped from the sky and headed like a speeding bullet towards the part of the valley where a mosaic of clashing colors overtook the idyllic view. There was bright desert orange next to deep blue, mossy green next to straw yellow and blood red, a patchwork of walled-off plots separated by anything from tall granite barriers to a line of bushes. They were loosely organized in concentric rings delineated both by roads and the few rivers become canals that meandered into the area. Some plots were entirely covered by a dome, which could range from completely opaque to clear as glass. Things floated within those domes. A crescent-shaped structure lay at its center, pristine white. At such great distance, Aaron could only make out a great circular tower presiding over the compound. He took a deep breath and stepped toward the edge of the cliff. The air smelled clean and crisp, the way a mountain top would be expected to feel. "I suppose that's where we're headed?" he asked, hands in his pockets as he pointed his chin at the massive structure. Queg floated closer. "Yes, I presume I shouldn't expect you to be able to fly with me there. It would make a far shorter journey." What? "I didn't think so. You'd have done it by now if you could," I gathered. The guide shifted height subtly while making a languid gesture with two of his appendages. A shrug, Aaron knew. It couldn't hurt to make certain. "You're telling me humans can fly here? You've seen them?" "Take things in stride, take things in stride, take things in stride." Queg made what could pass for a grimace. "I should not have said anything. Once more I speak without thinking it through. Please, forget all about it. We will meet your peers soon now. They can teach you all they know." Queg paused. "You won't tell them I have been so careless, will you? You said you wouldn't. Not that I doubt your warned, mind." Aaron quirked an eyebrow at the alien. "Just how bad are these people?" "Don't worry, man," he said. Remoran thing." He trailed off, then tried again. "I'm really grateful for what you're doing. I wouldn't want to get you in trouble. I've got your back." Aaron caught himself as soon as he said it. Would idioms be understood as well? "You honor me, Aaron," Queg said. You have my thanks. Deeming the guide's answer inconclusive, Aaron decided to test it. He wouldn't want to be caught in a hilarious misunderstanding while talking to the afterlife's version of a Klingon. He responded after a brief stretch of silence. Don't sweat it, mate. We better wrap this up so we can call it a day. Hopefully we'll put things to bed in a jiffy. He eyed the Remoran closely, secretly proud of his string of obnoxious expressions. Queg nodded in agreement and kept quiet. You did understand what I just said, right? Aaron asked. Why, yes, of course. You told me not to worry and expressed your desire for haste, hoping to conclude our business successfully. That is what you said, yes? Aaron simply nodded, then let out a sigh. He'd have loved to know how in blazes the whole thing worked. Looks to be a long way down, he said. We better get going. He delayed turning toward the road, despite his own comment. There was something else about the walled-off area that kept nagging at his attention, and it had nothing to do with the cringe-worthy colors. The whole region gave off a feeling. A new kind of feeling, a certain quality that he was not familiar with. It was faint, almost imperceptible. Aaron tried to concentrate on it. It felt like something pulling at him, only not in a physical way. Like the feeling he would get when someone entered the same room he was in, an awareness of difference, of presence. The sensation wasn't spread evenly through the region. He could feel distinct sources scattered through the patchwork area, and one of them was definitely moving. A little more focused, and Aaron understood that he was moving toward him. He leaned forward and squinted, scanning the landscape. Movement caught his eye, a black dot swiftly approaching. Queg, Aaron said, pointing. The dot had already resolved into a disk the color of rock and fresh soil. A man stood atop it, wrapped in long white robes that incongruously hung still about him. Should I be worried? Aaron asked, wide-eyed. Just how fast is the guy going? He shouldn't even be able to stand upright. Queg's lights flickered while he made an intermittent humming noise. Aaron barely saw the lights and noises anymore. He simply understood. Queg gasped in awe. You're worthy of a personal escort, sir, Queg said, both proud and fearful. Our journey is at an end. The man had almost come upon them during their brief exchange. His elaborate white robes, accented with golden embroidery, made stark contrast against his olive skin and long black hair. His broad chest and shoulders bulged under the garments. He looked young, about Aaron's age. The platform, made of rock and clumped-up earth, came to rest at the edge of their perch. Its underside melded with the irregular surface of the cliff as it settled, the dark soil becoming one with the light brown of the mountain. The man stepped off immediately, movements measured, dignified. He stood there for a moment, regarding them the way a soaring falcon might regard a hapless hare. Queg was already prostrated, the alien's tentacles chaotically spread over the ground. Under the man's impassive stare, Aaron felt the urge to bow before the mighty wizard that had flown at ludicrous speed on his magical disk in order to meet with the intruders. And then the wizard's stern face broke into a smile, pleased, warm, encouraging. His teeth were slightly uneven. "Welcome, brother," he said, spreading his arms in greeting. His wide sleeves were bound to his forearms with straps of white and gold cloth. "I thought there was something different about you. A newborn, how momentous! I am glad we decided to come receive you immediately." The man spoke, and Aaron understood it flawlessly, but lips and tongue formed sounds that did not match what he heard. The experience felt like watching a foreign movie with pitch-perfect English voiceover. "It is well that you have arrived at our doorstep safely," the man continued. "I am sure we have our friend here to thank." He gazed at the prostrate Remoran. We have dealt with you before. Queg, do rise. You will be honored as you deserve for your service." Queg did as he was told, plainly deferential. Aaron realized he'd been staring at the man with his mouth open for quite a while. Greetings," he said, and he offered his hand. "I'm Aaron Gretchen. Nice to meet you." The robed man stepped forward and clasped Aaron's hand with both of his, shaking firmly. It was a good shake, Aaron thought. Confident, yet gentle. "I forget myself," the man said, his earnest smile giving his eyes an honest bearing. "My name is Diego Hidalgo Santana, steward of 1,000 Rivers. But call me Diego. Last names are for strangers, and you are among friends now, Aaron. We're always overjoyed. He cut off with a small frown, his smile faltering, although not fading completely. Brown eyes stared at Aaron closely from behind bushy eyebrows. He adjusted his glasses as casually as he could with his free hand, struggling to keep from fidgeting. Santana's eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to make out something in the distance that he couldn't see well, except whatever he was trying to make out seemed to be within Aaron's skull. He let go of Aaron's hand and turned to Queg abruptly, his frown deepening. What have you told this newborn, 14th? Do you not know the protocol? Sir, Santana cut Queg off with a wave of his hand. Never mind. You have still performed a service, flawed as it may be. Ming Xie will decide what to do about it. As far as I am concerned, you have done well, but she will determine your reward, not I. He turned back to Aaron, and much of his friendliness returned. Come, I will take you to her. She will be delighted to know of your arrival, and will want to see to your well-being personally. Diego Hidalgo Santana, steward of Thousand Rivers, stepped aside and held out his hand toward the platform, gesturing for Aaron to go ahead and step onto it. That inviting smile was as harmless as could be. Diego, Aaron said, I assure you, Quig did everything he could to stick to this protocol you mentioned. He only told me some things because I threatened not to follow if he didn't answer. Even then, he was very tight-lipped. It was quite frustrating, actually. If he told me anything he shouldn't, it really wasn't his fault. Santana nodded, glancing at the Remoran. I see. Like I said, it's truly not up to me. We will have your testimony in mind, I promise. He gestured again, flowing robes rustling. If you will. Aaron eyed the man for a brief moment. All right, but only if you also promise not to throw a magic missile at my ass. He did as he was told and walked to the other end of the platform, his step wary despite the unquestionable solidity of the disc. Queg floated right behind him. The Remoran looked less like a guide now and more like a prisoner. I thought he'd be more excited to be so close to the famous reward. Santana climbed in last, moving in the same imperious way as before. Step or otherwise move away from the edges, please. I wouldn't want either of you to fall. He sounded mildly amused by the possibility. In fact, allow me to create a safer environment. He turned as he spoke and raised his hands before him, palms up. Something happened to Santana's body. Although the shift was immediately noticeable, it was hard to say exactly what the difference was. He looked like the same white-robed wizard, but more corporeal somehow, more dense. Where before he had been pumice, now he was granite. Suddenly loose boulders and chunks of rock lifted from the face of the cliff and floated to the sides of the cone-shaped platform. They did so without resistance or audible protest. They hadn't been so much torn off as simply sliced effortlessly off their resting place. Before Aaron's befuddled gaze, the mismatched pieces of mountain surrounded the circumference of the disc, each one lazily rotating in place. Santana spread his arms in a slow arch from the front to the sides, palms face down. As he gestured, the rocks thinned and stretched into cylinders, some slightly curved, some straight. The straight cylinders became vertical posts that attached to the outside of the disc, while the arch ones rotated to a horizontal position and joined together to form a rail that came to rest atop the newly created supports. The waist-length handrail looked as solid as if it had always been there. Santana lowered his hands, his body shifting back to its former state. There was nothing visual to the transformation. Aaron simply felt it. The man faced them with a friendly smile that had just a tiny bit of smugness thrown in. A smile that held the promise of wondrous things to come. Do feel free to hold on to it as we travel, Santana said. The ride should be smooth enough, but there is no harm in taking precautions. Too stunned for words, Aaron took the man's advice.